President of Honduras, Xiomara Castro, condemned the destabilizing actions taking place in the country against democracy. In France, the left claims President Emmanuel Macron is stealing the legislative election from the people by appointing conservative Michael Barnier as Prime Minister and rejecting to appoint economist Lucy Castex. And in Palestine, the occupiers' troops leave Jenin, leaving death and destruction in their wake. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The President of Honduras, Xiomara Castro, condemned the destabilizing actions taking place in the country against democracy. The head of state ratified this Friday that her government belongs to the people and that she will continue defending their rights in spite of the complex circumstances the country is going through due to the interference of the United States. The President pointed out that her government is facing a crisis and assured to be ready to repel the attacks in defense of the will of the Honduran people. Xiomara Castro emphasized that the armed forces, the popular organizations, and the unity of the Free Party will defend democracy, its independence, sovereignty, and dignity without forgetting to be an axis of anti-imperialist resistance.
I call on the Honduran people to get organized. But I also call on the Liberty and RE Foundation Party to maintain the political unity, because we need to repel the coup d'etat that is being planned by the right wing and those who staged the coup d'etat in 2009.
The Honduran head of state rejected any links between political leaders and drug traffickers.
We understand that a member of our party made a terrible mistake. Without informing the coordinator, the candidate, and the party. Behind our backs, and we deplore any action or any negotiation between politicians and drug traffickers. We do not accept it, and we will not allow it.
In Venezuela, the Vice President Delcy Rodriguez, who is also Venezuela's Minister of Energy and Petroleum, has toured the Orinoco oil belt to see that the industry continues to strengthen. The facility, one of the most important in the country and named after Commander Hugo Chavez, was toured by the delegation, which also included the President of Petróleos de Venezuela, Héctor Obregón, and in a leading role, the plant's workers. During the visit to the facility located in the south of the country, which extends over 5 states, they reviewed the recovery and development plans and reaffirmed the commitment to contribute to peace and the growth of the country. The Attorney General of Venezuela, Tarek William Saab, ratified the summons by the Public Prosecutor's Office to the former presidential candidate of the Venezuelan ultra-right, Edmundo González, to make statements in relation to a series of crimes he is accused of, among them his responsibility for the publication on an unofficial webpage of fraudulent elections records. We give you more details with our correspondent Luis Guillermo Garcia.
Prosecutor Tarek William Saab recalled that Edmundo González has repeatedly ignored and disrespected the authority of several institutions of the Venezuelan state, first of all the National Electoral Council, by not signing an agreement to respect the results, which he did not recognize and then endorsed through different means. The publication of false minutes in an electronic media accusing the electoral power of fraud. Then, He disregarded the summons issued by the electoral chamber of the Supreme Court of Justice to present his arguments and evidence of his accusations and, finally, he did not appear before the public prosecutor's office. After this agency ordered his presence in 3 occasions.
In this sense, as we informed you, the public prosecutor's office ratifies the summons with the arrest warrant in progress for González Urrutia to be interviewed, and ratifies that he is requested and must be presented and brought to justice, as it corresponds within the framework of the Constitution and the law.
The denunciations of electoral fraud made by the ex-candidate of the ultra-right, endorsed by corporate and political powers of the United States, were followed by multiple violent acts carried out by groups financed by the extreme right, several of which have already been ordered by the authorities, who point to Maria Corina Machado and Edmundo González, those responsible for these criminal operations.
They are the intellectual actors of the death of 27 Venezuelans during the days following July 28 and of having mortally wounded 190, of which 100 are police and military officials, and of having attacked and destroyed 400 state and also private properties, such as schools, high schools, universities, health centers, educational centers.
The also president of the Citizen Power, Tarek William Saab, highlights that Edmundo González, through his lawyer, Jose Vicente Haro, states that he is not responsible for the publication of the false tally sheets, and that this is the responsibility of the unitary platform led by Maria Corina Machado. However, the Attorney General pointed out that it is public, notorious, and communicative that the former candidate proclaimed his supposed electoral triumph based on these fraudulent publications. However, the Attorney General emphasizes that the presence of González Urrutia's lawyer before the public prosecutor's office is a sign that this attorney recognizes the authority.
Edmundo González Urrutia recognizes the Venezuelan institutionality. He recognizes the public ministry, which has a value for democracy, because indeed, if he presented himself as the electoral standard-bearer of the most extreme right, and even boasts that he was a diplomat, the least a diplomat should do is to respect the rule of law. To be in the right if he is required, and to present his allegations based on an ongoing investigation that has been made public.
According to these announcements, the authorities are continuing their investigations into the various acts that sought to carry out a coup in Venezuela after the July 28 elections, in which President Nicolas Maduro won.
En la cámara de Jesús Romero, Luis Guillermo García Bencomo, desde Caracas, Venezuela, para teleSUR.
Mexico's President-elect Claudia Sheinbaum assured that there is no possibility of suspending the reform of the judiciary, as it is a decision of the people. This is how she responded after being consulted by the media about the beginning of consultations on the reform announced by the Supreme Court of Justice. The President-elect assured that a few people cannot reverse the decision of the Mexican people, expressed on June 2nd. She assured that the decision rests in the sovereign power and that it will be the best for the country.
Who has to decide the constitutional reform are the deputies and senators, and as it says in the Constitution since 1939 that sovereignty resides in the people, but also, the only one who has the power to change the Constitution is the constituent, which in our country are 2/3 of the Chamber of Deputies of Senators and majorities that correspond in local congresses. We must make the popular will.
The President-elect called for calm and stated that reform is the best thing that can happen to the country.
Nobody has to worry. The fact that the judges, ministers, and magistrates are elected by the people of Mexico is better for Mexico. That means more democracy, more independence of the judiciary, but also, as I have explained, the way in which they will be elected to be voted. Who will decide who will be voted is through a broad call is the best thing that can happen to the country.
Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you find news in different formats, news updates and more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. On Friday, Brazilians arrived to the commemoration of the Amazon Day amid severe regional drought and surging wildfires. According to the National Institute for Space Research, INPE, over 38,000 fire outbreaks have been recorded throughout the Amazon just in August. The INPE specialist asserted that humidity and smog from wildfires are spreading to Sao Paulo metropolitan region due to the drought and the low flow of the Amazon rivers. So far, some 62 municipalities in the region have been declared in a state of emergency, while local authorities estimate that over 330,000 people have been affected. In Córdoba, in the central region of Argentina, the forest fire season has started, prompting the province authorities to declare a state of disaster. Precisely, the governor of Córdoba, Martín Yaroira, informed that the fires have consumed 12 hectares of land, affecting the state of Calamuchita, Punilla, Colón and Santa Maria, and added that they are working to reduce the damage and help the victims. In this regard, the Secretary of Climate Risk Management of the province acknowledged the bravery of the fire department, whose performance prevented a major tragedy. In France, the left claims President Emmanuel Macron stole the legislative election from the people by appointing conservative Michel Barnier as prime minister. Despite the fact that the left-wing coalition New Popular Front won last July's legislative elections, the French head of state refused to appoint the economist Lucie Castex as head of the government. In turn, the French left has lashed out a decision, with the founder of La France Insoumise, Jean-Luc Mélenchon, asserting that the elections have been stolen. Likewise, the French Communist Party, the Ecologist and the Socialist Party have all expressed dissatisfaction with the appointment. In this context, Mélenchon has called on the French to demonstrate on the streets to defend democracy next Saturday.
Le message a été nié. Et maintenant,
the message was nullified. And now we discover a prime minister who has been appointed, with the permission and perhaps at the suggestion of the national rally, whereas the second round of the legislative election had been entirely focused on defeating this national rally. It is the person closest to its positions who is appointed. Virtually a government of Mr. Macron and Ms. Le Pen.
Furthermore, the leader of La France Insoumise also emphasized that the decision nullified the message of the legislative election, which was defeating the advances of the far-right party in the nation.
L'élection est volée.
The election has been stolen. The Prime Minister carries a message of negation of the will of the French people, and this is not the first time. I therefore call for the most powerful mobilization possible, on September 7th, for the respect of democracy, for the respect of the proper understanding of what are republican institutions placed under the sovereignty of the people.
We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back. The government of Russia announced on Friday it will impose restrictions on U.S. media, an action that comes in response to Washington's sanctions against Russian media outlets. The restrictions were announced on Friday by the spokesman of the presidential office, Dmitry Peskov, in reference to the coercive measures imposed on media outlets such as Sputnik and some of its workers. For its part, the Russian ambassador accredited in Washington, Anatoly Antonov, assured that sanctions have become a kind of discipline in political sports for the United States. Furthermore, the diplomat stressed that these measures are aimed at pressuring independent countries and highlight the risk of a dollar-centered system. In the Philippines, the former mayor of Bamban, Alice Leal Guo, was extradited back to the country early Friday after being arrested in Indonesia. Guo, who had been on the run since July, is accused of human trafficking and links to organized crime, specifically involving a gambling center where hundreds were allegedly forced to run scams or face torture. Her escape route included Malaysia and Singapore before her capture on September 3, 2024. Upon arrival in Manila, she was taken into custody by national police. Guo faces multiple charges, including graft and money laundering. Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. called her capture a significant step in combating crime. The United Nations organization announced that the number of people suffering from catastrophic hunger will soar in 2024, largely due to the conflicts in Gaza and Sudan. According to the most recent release of the Global Food Crisis Report, at least 2 million people now face the most critical level of food insecurity, an increase of more than double from the previous period. The report confirms extreme food shortages and depleted coping capacities and warns of a markedly increased risk of acute malnutrition and death. The report also detailed that the impact of the war and severe restrictions on humanitarian response have led to a total collapse of food, health and protection systems with catastrophic consequences. In Palestine, after carrying out the largest military incursion into the occupied territory since 2000, the occupiers' troops leave Jenin, leaving death and destruction in their wake. The end of the siege of the city and its refugee camps has been confirmed by the local authorities. They also certified that the genocidal army has withdrawn from the vicinity of the government hospital and the EBN Sina hospital, where they had been stationed since the invasion of the West Bank began on August 28th. The local government, confirming the complete disengagement of the Israeli military, reported 39 deaths, more than 130 wounded, and almost complete destruction after 9 days of violence. In Palestine, health workers started vaccinating children against polio in the southern Gaza Strip on Thursday after concluding the first phase of the immunization campaign in the territory's central areas. Vaccines are being administered by local health teams in coordination with UNICEF and the World Health Organization as an urgent measure to prevent a polio outbreak after health authorities confirmed the first case reported in 25 years. There remains a risk that polio could re-emerge as a regional or global outbreak. It is important to note that the disease reappeared in Gaza as a mutated virus from the oral polio vaccine. In this context, Hanan Balki, World Health Organization Regional Director, made a few statements. We have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net and join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram and TikTok as well. For TeleSUR English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.